Hi there, and welcome to the dailylessonlearn.com video series, episode 1, Copy Paste Tips and Tricks in Visual Studio. I'm Phil Vallette, and without further ado, I'm going to get started showing you how you can use copy and paste. Now these are more advanced versions of copy and paste rather than just your simple right-click and copy and paste, where you're using either the context menu or Control C and Control V to copy and paste. I'm sure you all know how to do things like that. This is kind of a little bit of a level up from just the basic copy and paste. There's quite a few things you can do in Visual Studio and some of the other tools that we use as developers that are more advanced. And so one of those things is to just hold Control while you're copying. You can highlight whole words. Another thing in here is when you're holding Shift and Control, you can go between highlighted words, copying highlighted words. So these are just different ways you can use Control and the mouse to highlight. You can also use the keyboard with Control, and Control arrow will skip over whole words. Here I'm skipping over the word task, throw it up test. And while you're doing that, if you hold Shift Control, you'll be able to highlight entire words, copy those and move them around, copy and paste them, cut and paste them, things like that. You don't necessarily need to use Control C and Control V, especially if you've got your mouse handy. You can do things like just drag it and move it. Let's say you're just moving methods around. This is probably the easiest way to do it, is to just drag it up. Another thing you can do is, besides just dragging, copying, say we want to put a few more lines in here, we can just use Control, click and drag, and when you let go of the click, you let go of the mouse button, it'll drop a copy in place. So that's kind of like your copy and paste, and just dragging it is like your cut and paste. Okay, hopefully so far you've learned some new things. If not, maybe you will now. With this next lesson, let's take Alt, click, and do a box highlight. Again, put the cursor wherever you want it, or wherever your cursor is, hit Control. Holding Alt, clicking and dragging a box to highlight whatever you want. For example, let's say we want to make more columns in our matrix. Now I'm just hitting Control V to place what I've copied into the clipboard, what I've box highlighted into the clipboard, and pasting it in place. One of what I would say the most useful aspects of box highlighting, and you can either do this with the mouse, this also works with the keyboard. It's a little bit trickier with the mouse because sometimes you don't get it right in there. So I like to use the keyboard to do things like this. You have to use Shift Alt when you're using the keyboard, because Shift is the command to highlight. So in order to do box highlighting, you can Shift and either go across to what you want, hold Alt and go down, arrow left, arrow right. Let's say I did want to put the string keyword in here. Boom, got the whole thing there. Just typed it once, didn't have to copy and paste, didn't have to do any of that. Okay, Control Z to eliminate that. But let's say we want to change, or perhaps even make this a specific word instead of a number. Word. Fantastic. Didn't have to go through the pains of pasting that in many times. Another way to do it would have been Control click to highlight the whole word. Control C to copy it. Control click, or even double click, which is more clicks, which is bad for your carpal tunnels because you're constantly clicking the same thing all the time. Control click is save you some clicks there. This will save you some mouse strokes and some keystrokes. Now see, that's a problem. That's not very productive. When you try to control click something and it just doesn't work quite right. So sometimes it's a little bit easier to just use the arrows, especially when you want to do the box highlighting. That especially makes it easy. Shift Alt and down. Now you can barely see it, but there is a highlight being dragged right in between there. So now we still have that highlighting there, and we can still type things, and it'll copy out every line that we've done. Another use of box highlighting is, well, actually, I'm going to say that this is one little caveat with box highlighting. When you copy, I've copied all that to the clipboard. I'm hitting Control V right here, and it just kind of shoves it in wherever and moves everything aside without respect to new lines. Well, it does respect new lines, but it doesn't insert new lines for every one. Now, I don't know if this is true of all text editors or advanced text editors, but in Visual Studio, if you hit Enter to go to a new line and paste your box highlighted copied text onto that new line, it'll put the new lines in for you and push everything down. That wouldn't normally be the case where you at the end of the line or at the end of a line that already had text on it. But if it's a new line without text on it, it'll help you out there. It'll understand the context a little bit. Some other things you can do are to highlight the whole line, Shift Home, hit Shift Home twice, it'll go back to the beginning of the line. Shift End to highlight to the end. Then maybe you want to hit Shift and arrow down or up to highlight the rest of those lines. Now that you've got the whole line highlighted, again, then Shift End. Control Shift End will highlight to the end of the page or the beginning. Just like Control End will go to the end or the beginning. Home and End moves the cursor between the beginning and the end of a line, whereas Control End. So that's the same thing with holding Shift Control Home, Shift Control End, or Shift End, or Shift Home. Okay, that's probably enough fun. Home and End. Another thing you can do is Shift Page Down. Now you're not seeing this because it went down to the next line, but it actually highlighted everything on that page. Another way to highlight everything on the page is to use Control Shift Page Down. It'll highlight to the end of the page, but still, and it won't advance the page, which is nice because then you can actually see what was highlighted. Whereas you could Control Page Down, it'll put your cursor to the bottom of the page. So it's really kind of whatever your key commands would do to the cursor. If you hold Shift, it'll do that, with the exception of the Alt key, which, now if we've got something highlighted already and we're holding Shift, we can hit Alt and it'll turn it into, I guess we don't really have to, yes, okay. So let's do this again, Shift, Control, Page Down, okay. Highlight everything on the page. Hold Shift and Alt, and now it turns it into a box select. I don't know how useful this would actually be, but maybe you would find it useful for, say, taking all these indents, copying all the indentations here. So maybe Shift, Control, End, switch to Shift, Alt, take the indentations, copy those, and now you have the indentations there that you have your file. I don't know why you would do that, but maybe there's a purpose for it that you can find it useful for. So there you have it. We've covered different ways to either double click and highlight whole words, Control click and highlight, drag and drop, Control drag and drop to copy and paste, to copy it into place. Those are really, to me, the most valuable besides the Alt select, the Alt box highlighting. And using the tricks with the arrows, Shift N. One thing you can do to cut a whole line is Control L. I know that's on the clipboard. I don't use that one that often, but you could. I've used it a couple of times. It just kind of fell out of favor with using other methods. It's just something I don't think of that often. It does come in handy though. I mean, you could potentially just Control L to get rid of each of those lines. They're on the clipboard. I think there's a different way to just remove the lines. I can't recall what it is because I don't use it. I usually use Shift N to highlight the whole line and delete it if I want to delete it, or Control X if I want to copy it. The one thing it doesn't do is take your new line with it, where I think Control L takes the new line with it. And it looks like it was the one at the end of the line, as opposed to the one before it. Let's try it with Control X. Doesn't take away your new line. So that's the end of this episode in the video series of the dailylessonlearned.com, the video series. The original blog is at dailylessonlearned.com, where I post lessons I've learned through software development, and in hopes that you can learn from them too, or just sort of as a little bit of, maybe I can look back and take a look at how things progressed. If you want to take a look through there and see what kinds of things you can learn from there. Look for future videos. Definitely subscribe if you found this interesting. If you think future topics would be interesting, I'll be going over some other things within Visual Studio, within code editors in general, some organization, these test methods. I might even talk about why you don't really need to catch exceptions and rethrow, maybe with some advanced exception handling, or even just beyond the basic exception handling, some best practices of what to do, what not to do, and look for those future topics. Definitely subscribe, post some comments if you've got a copy and paste tip or trick that can make things a little bit easier for developers, for other developers who may be watching this. And thank you for watching. Again, I'm Phil Villette. This has been the dailylessonlearned.com, the video series.